So now that we understand a little bit about how coherence affects cognition and behavior and emotions as well, which is a subset of cognition there, we can now identify some factors that can play a role in how synchronization spreads across the brain. And so we know now from the first example that signals can be somewhat coherent across cortical layers. And we can see that here. You can see the shared phase in those raw voltage traces in the second part of the panel there. And if we look inside the thalamus, which is a sensory relay region in the center of the brain, it's connected to many different areas, subcortical and cortical areas that carries information about our outside world to our awareness. That's one of the main functions of this region, like quickly integrating information about everything we're experiencing and even things that we have experienced in the past. And so these different regions of this thalamus, or this relay station in the center of the brain, project to different parts of the cortex, different layers. And we can see here that you have a population of cells called matrix neurons, and you have core neurons. These are characterized by different protein expression levels, which are what we are depicting here with the colors. And so this shows that different regions of the thalamus project to different parts of the cortex, and that different cells are responsible for these projections. And so that the communication between these cells are what creates this synchrony across brain regions and within brain regions, right? Because this is just within auditory cortex. We can see the phase alignment there and the phase shift across cortical layers. This is from the same paper. This shows the distribution, the spatial distribution across the whole cortex of these core and matrix neurons. So this is mRNA expression levels for those of you who want to know the exact measure that's being looked at here. So this shows us this gives us an indicator as to the spatial reach of these neurons that are projecting to the different layers of the cortex, as seen in the previous slide. And so you can see that there's broad and widespread thalamocortical connectivity, just connectivity between the thalamus and the cortex, the sensory relay station, and the parts of the brain that do the heavy lifting, the heavy processing, which is the neocortex. Now, coherence in between superficial and deep cortical LFP is seemingly substantiated by deep layered action potentials, right? And so we did a study where we computed coherence or phase synchrony between lower level, deep level action potentials and superficial level brain waves to see how far this spread. And so you can see here depicted this phenomenon we call spike field coherence. Spikes as an action potential, single units firing off. How are they synchronized to the oscillations on the sensor or the surface of the brain? And so we can see that about 1 to 2 centimeters spread of this activity. So it suggests that single units, a bunch of single cells, maybe about 100 or so single neurons, can measurably send signals centimeters away or be synchronized with, because it's bidirectional communication with tissue that's several centimeters in radius around the cell. The key idea here is that if we pull all those neurons together and just take the oscillations occurring around them, then we see an even farther spread of this signal. So if we go back to there, and then we go back to this one, you can see that the spread is farther for the pooled oscillations in the deeper cortical areas. So it suggests that these deep cortical oscillations, which are supported by different thalamic projections, we see that those can reach farther than the units themselves, right? So that's the key there, is that these that surface depth coherence between the surface of the cortex and deeper layers can potentially convey information farther than information spread within layers. So I think that's a critical observation, and one that needs to be thought about more and studied more deeply in the field. But that helps us understand how the brain talks to itself, right? How do we compute information inside of this amazing computer inside of our heads? And so the next goal here is to, and this right here shows how far it spreads, right? So you have about a 20 to 30 millimeter spread of coherence from a given region, which is a pretty good distance and farther than what we thought it was. Like the spread of the field potentials that I've been showing you are very, they don't spread as far as shared information as a whole, the phase. Finally, coherence connects brain regions. This is a study where participants were given a free recall task. Like if I give you 6 words to remember and I ask you in 5 minutes to tell me which ones you remember, they were given a task like this, right? And so we can see here what this shows is that low frequency synchronization across all of these different brain regions. The point of this is not to overwhelm you, but to show you how important coherence is. And so synchronization across all of the different brain regions depicted by the connecting red dots was predictive of their performance in this memory task. Whereas desynchronization, which is depicted by the blue here, and high frequencies, right? So lower coherence and higher frequencies, meaning less shared information in higher frequencies, also predicted it. So this change in greater low frequency synchronization, lower high frequency synchronization increased memory performance. So what that suggests to us is that these higher frequency oscillations are considered most of the time to be very local, like very constrained to a small amount of space. Whereas these lower frequency oscillations are thought to be more constrained or less constrained to local space and more constrained to external space, right? Which would explain why you would need increased communication between brain regions to increase your memory performance, but decreased shared gamma information, because the gamma oscillations presumably desynchronized might mean that those neurons in each area are doing their specific jobs, but that the increased synchronization at lower frequencies shows us the communication between those brain areas. So they're simultaneously doing their own jobs and sending information back and forth at the lower frequencies. I think that's a critical idea to convey here, that these different frequency bands are conveying different information at the same time. So imagine tuning in, just like your car when you're driving and you tune into a radio station, you're receiving inputs from all radio stations, but you tune in to the channel that you want to get information from. And the brain does a very similar mechanism of communication. And so the take-home concepts here are: 1, that coherence reveals shared information among neural populations. 2, coherence is important for movement, perception, emotion, and thought. 3, coherence is a key mechanism for communication between brain regions. Those are very important ideas. Coherence is the same thing as brainwave synchronization. So keep that in mind, right? You can call it coherence because it's way less of a mouthful. I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I would like to also thank LabRoots for having me on board. And here are the references for those who want to zoom in and